The Boston Celtics are in midst of a playoff run, and if you ask me right now, they're my favorite team to currently make it out of the Eastern Conference. And that's why you subscribe, because during this playoff run, throughout the offseason, we keep you in the know with all things Celtics news and rumors. So make sure you hit that red subscribe button down below. Let's get to 10,000 subs as soon as possible, and let's talk some Celtics basketball right now. You're watching Boston Celtics Today by Chat Sports. I'm your host, Chase Sr. Celtics in the midst of a really intriguing and fascinating playoff series with the Brooklyn Nets. And could they have a reinforcement coming to the Celtics roster right around the corner in the form of the Time Lord? Robert Williams continues to rehabilitate from that injury. He will travel with the team to Brooklyn to the Barclays Center. Ime Udoka saying that his rehab is going well. And could Williams return to play against the Brooklyn Nets? Now, a couple of things factor into this equation. If the Brooklyn Nets are able to win Game 3, maybe it makes this series a little bit more interesting to speed up the timeline for Robert Williams to rejoin the Celtics. But let's say Boston ends up going out to a 3-0 commanding lead in this series. There's no question that they're going to end up winning it. Could you buy some time for Robert Williams to continue to get healthy? Ime Udoka, when asked about the latest Robert Williams injury update, said this, quote, "He'll travel with us. It's different than the end of the season when in the early stages of his rehab, we wanted him to be here. This is the time of year we want him around the team, camaraderie-wise, and his impact just being around the group to be in that playoff atmosphere. So he'll travel with us, and regarding him, he's progressing well. He's had no setbacks, and that benchmark of where we aimed of 4 to 6 weeks is looking good. We're happy with his progress." And the worst thing that could happen for the Celtics and Robert Williams is a setback to that knee injury. He's really, really critical to the Celtics' long-term playoff success. He just adds a different element to this team offensively on the pick and roll as a lob threat, but defensively as an elite rim protector and a guy who can rim run for the Celtics as well. But in his absence, how about Al Horford turning the clocks back? I mean, we have seen some vintage Al Horford performances over the last couple of weeks, and in games 1 and 2, he's been the ultimate glue guy for this Boston team, really looking like the prime Al Horford, who was such a great playoff contributor for a long time with the Atlanta Hawks, with the Boston Celtics, a disastrous year in Philadelphia. Then he was basically exiled in OKC, told to stay away from the team. I think we've seen him rejuvenated a little bit coming back to the Celtics roster. As far as the Time Lord goes, he makes the Celtics defense even better. So now you're looking at a situation where Daniel Tice, with the familiarity, looking good. So too, and the same can be said for Al Horford. Then you bring in Robert Williams into the fold, and he gives you even more depth in that front court. And with all three of those players, you have a good semblance and a good variety of lineup versatility. Robert Williams this year, after signing that contract extension, which at the time I didn't really understand, but honestly, it's a good bargain deal for Boston considering the improvements we've seen take place. They were really impressive this year, those improvements. 10 points per game, nearly 10 boards, so almost a double-double night in, night out. Now, he's not going to shoot the basketball. He can't really shoot free throws, but it's all good considering all of the other areas in which he's valuable in. Shot nearly 74% from the floor, and then 2 blocks per game. That goes to show you just the impact and the way that he's able to change the complexion of games on the defensive end of the floor. So as we continue to unpack everything in this Nets and Celtics series, first I want you to get into the comments section, and I want to get the good vibes flowing for Robert Williams. Spam 44 in the comment section for a quick recovery, because I know, you know, watching, he is very important to the Celtics playoff success. Coming up around the corner on Boston Celtics Today, I have 3 keys to victory in Game 3, and really this is a critical game in this series. If the Nets are able to cut into that 2-0 advantage, makes this series a little bit more interesting. If the Celtics can get out to that 3-0 advantage, they're going to lock this series down. That's coming up. But first, today's sponsor, BetUS. The best sports book in the game right now. If you want to bet on the Celtics in Game 3 or to win this playoff series, to win the NBA Finals, or to win the Eastern Conference, you can do so by plugging in that link at the bottom of your screen, chatsports.com/bet, promo code at chat125. You take a look at the updated NBA Finals odds. There's been a shift here, folks, because of the injury to Devin Booker and the injury to Chris Middleton. Because of that and the fact that the Warriors are playing great ball, they are now the leaders to win the NBA championship at 3-1 odds, followed by the Suns, the Boston Celtics, out to that 2-0 advantage over Brooklyn, 5-1 odds. Get those bets in, chatsports.com/bet, promo code chat125. A big question looming in this playoff series between the Nets and the Celtics. When is Ben Simmons going to return to the floor after not having played all year and after having not played since the second round of the playoffs last year around this time against the Atlanta Hawks for the Philadelphia 76ers? Rumors of that Ben Simmons is aiming to make his Nets debut in Game 4. Hasn't played in over a year, which is really crazy to think about because when he's right, I understand he does have deficiencies to his game. We're talking about one of the best defensive players in the NBA and a guy who can certainly impact games offensively. Not shooting the rock because he's scared to do that and allergic to letting it fly, but he's an excellent passer. Steve Nash saying that the report is news to me about all of the rumblings about Ben Simmons returning to the floor at the Barclays Center for Game 4. Here's exactly what Steve Nash had to say about Simmons' injury. I don't think we're targeting any game. I think we're trying to see how he develops, how he progresses. That's something that, with the recent history since the trade, has not been straightforward. So while it's exciting to see him on the floor and to see him make progress, I don't think any of us are saying that it's imminent. Now, what is Simmons' impact going to be? That's the major looming question that I have about the impact that he can have in this series and him returning to the floor. We're talking about a guy who hasn't played basketball in about a year. So is he going to be able to come off that back injury, shake off the rust, and be an immediate impact player? Now, for him and Brooklyn, it's a good situation because Ben Simmons doesn't really have to do much offensively because KD and Kyrie are going to one-on-one ISO. They're going to operate a little two-man game, and they're going to try to get theirs while Ben Simmons is going to play that glue guy role, kind of like Draymond Green. But when he's right, when he's healthy, Ben Simmons is a really good player. Now, he had to take some offensive sacrifices last year, taking a back seat to Joel Embiid and Tobias Harris, 14 points per game, and he's always really a threat to put a triple-double into the stat sheet. But again, coming off that back injury, having not played in about a year, what is his impact going to be in a high-leverage series, and is he mentally fit to compete in this series? I think it was by design, maybe, that he didn't make his return in Boston because we know how that would go. Philadelphia and Boston coming together to root against Ben Simmons. Very rare that those two rival cities do come together. Will Ben Simmons play in this series against Boston? Let me know in the comments section. Y for yes, N for no. We certainly value your feedback here at Chat Sports. Be sure to get those votes in. Appreciate all of you for rocking and rolling with us here on Boston Celtics Today by Chat Sports. Coming up next, Celtics Game 3 keys to victory. What do they have to do to take a commanding 3-0 series lead against Brooklyn? Continue stellar defense. You're led by Marcus Smart, Defensive Player of the Year, but the defense on Kevin Durant is some of the best defense that I have ever seen against a superstar ever. Him going over in the second half in Game 2 is the first time in his NBA career that has ever happened. Think about that, how efficient Kevin Durant has been as an offensive player, one of the most gifted and best and most talented offensive players that we've ever seen grace the basketball floor. He went over because of the Celtics' defensive effort that from the All-Star break on has been the best defense in the league. You want a key to victory? Honestly, we can stop there with continuing that stellar defense, but I have more keys to victory. Withstand the initial Brooklyn Nets energy. When a team is down throughout the midst of a playoff series, they're going to come out when they're down, and they're going to come out swinging, throwing their best punches like a Mike Tyson uppercut. So the Celtics really do have to absorb some of those early blows and that early energy. And if they're able to do that, we've seen so far in the first two games of this playoff series, the adjustments made in-game by Ime Udoka have trumped anything that Steve Nash has been able to do. They're going to have to do that in Game 3 in a raucous environment in New York. lastly, continue to swarm Kevin Durant. This might be the biggest key in this entire series. Kevin Durant couldn't get a shot off. He looked really, really uncomfortable, and he is facing a double team anytime he's inside the three-point arc. When he's guarded by Jayson Tatum, Daniel Tice comes over to shade him. Al Horford will do the same. Marcus Smart has guarded Kevin Durant on a couple of occasions. So Kevin Durant hasn't been the same guy. Shot sub 24% in Game 2. If he does that again in Game 3, Celtics are going to be victorious. Also, after a phenomenal Game 1 in which Kyrie tried to put the middle finger up to Boston, but at the end of the day, Boston and the fans won because they got that dub on the Jayson Tatum buzzer beater. He was awful in Game 2. If the Brooklyn Nets get another performance like this from Kyrie, they will go down once again. And once again, what's the theme here in these keys? Defensive effort, defensive intensity, and defensive tenacity from the Boston Celtics. Lastly, before we hop on out of here, give me your predictions into the comments section. Who wins Game 3? Nets, Celtics. Epic series continues in the BK. Type C for Celtics, N for Nets. Enjoy your weekends and stay tuned for more Celtics videos here on the channel.